On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2012. We're going to be taking a look at Lenny Kravitz, and he's going to be performing Whole Lotta Love. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get Lenny up on screen with his band and see how they get on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lenny Kravitz.
I'm just going to jump in here. As always, there's going to be a link in the description below, so you guys can click on that to watch it the whole way through without me interrupting it. But everybody is getting into this. You can see Bonnie right there, and as well as lots of other very famous faces just getting into this performance. And just to talk about this video, it is coming from Lenny Kravitz's official channel. So whether it's going to get blocked on copyrights or not, I do not know. You'll already know by now, because if it has, then I'll re-edit it and re-upload it. We are going to be taking a look at Lenny's vocal. We'll also bust out the guitar later on, even though those of you that do play the guitar, I'm sure you know how to play this, and the lead work associated with it as well. Just to throw in the mix that Lenny's performing this in front of Led Zeppelin, and vocally he is doing such a fantastic job, because you know he's trying to sing something that Robert Plant sung. And whenever you're trying to sing any Led Zeppelin, because of Robert Plant's vocal that everybody knows, it is such a tall order to do that. But Lenny does a fantastic job here. And just range-wise, a technical point is that we are in E flat, and the original was in E. So we are half a step down, but that by no means takes anything away from this performance, because Lenny is hitting constant B flats here. And we will get the piano up on screen, because it's going to help you guys to understand what's going on from a vocal perspective, but also you'll get such a deeper appreciation of what Lenny's achieving here. And it does really tie in with a video that I did recently, the live analysis I did on Pat Benatar. If you haven't watched that one, check it out, because we look at the ranges on the piano and we see where Pat's going with her voice in exactly the same way that we can see where Lenny goes with his voice here. So First of all, the vocal ranges that I am going to bring up on screen are going to be that of the female vocalists out there, and you've got the contralto, mezzo-soprano, and soprano ranges that are on there. I have to look off to a screen to my left here in order to see what you guys can see, but you can see the high C that I've left in there. That is the male tenor high C, and seen as the holy grail in classical music, as I always say. But when we're talking about the B flat, we're here on the keyboard. Hopefully you can see this indication of my arrow, and the B flat is this note here. And these green notes are, you can see within the soprano range, the mezzo-soprano range, also the top of the contralto range. So it's notes within the female vocal register, and these green notes here going all the way up to high C are the tenor, and that is the highest of the male vocal ranges. You'll also hear reference to the countertenor range, which means that we would go above this. It's just a way of describing those notes that then go into the higher end of the female vocal registers, but to refer to that as a guy would be the countertenor range. But anyway, the blue notes down here, we've got the bass range for guys, the baritone, and then going into the tenor. And the notes do overlap. So just to keep it simple for the moment, I have taken the male ranges out of there so you can see where we are range-wise. It is way up there, getting into female registers. Interesting point, there are a lot of covers on YouTube at the moment, and I do refer to this in that other video, that are being performed by female vocalists, but they are male vocalists that they're singing. For example, in this song, we've got this B flat the whole time, which means that it's right bang in the middle of the mezzo-soprano range. So for women, this hard rock track, classic rock, sits in a really accessible place for them, and they don't have to change keys. They haven't got to raise it up, because guys like Robert Plant had their vocals so high up that they were just hitting in that really thick chest voice sound. The women don't have to do anything, it just sits right in there, so they can lean into it and do some fantastic vocal performances of those old classic 70s, 80s, sometimes the really hard rock stuff in the mid 80s, they're nailing that as well, because it's all in this male tenor range way up there. What you won't see women doing is going all the way down to the bass range of the guys, because that isn't something naturally that they'll be able to do. And if they were to try and do that, it will firstly sound a bit weird, but secondly take a hell of a lot of training in order to get their vocal cords to get down that low. And just by the physical makeup of it, it works both ways. Guys, from our own physical makeup, going through puberty, in our teenage years, our voices drop significantly, and you can compare our vocal ranges with women's. When we're talking, it's about an octave roughly that they sit above guys. So for guys, singing down here in the baritone range will be quite comfortable, and getting up into this male tenor range will be very difficult. You have to train a hell of a lot. So let's bring this back to Lenny. Now that we know where the female ranges sit, and we know where our B flat is, we're going to get rid of that, because now we have the male vocal ranges. And as you can see here, the bass range that I was pointing out, going into the baritone, these ranges overlap. We're not computers, so it means that our voices aren't set to a particular note. They interchange, but with classical singing, these are the ranges, what they're referred to as, but they're not absolutes. Everybody's vocal cords can work in different ways, are more flexible in order to get higher. Other people's vocal ranges go a lot lower, so they do overlap. So we have this baritone range and the tenor range. So pointing out the B flat that we have here from Lenny, it is, if we're just looking at the basic vocal ranges for guys, it's up at the top end. You don't even really need to look at the tenor range, the male tenor range, that you'll see described as going up to A4, but it can go higher than that into the countertenor range, which is E5. But again, guys can go higher than that. The great vocalists can train their voice to cover such a wide range. But here we've got this B flat 4, so just two notes off this high C, which is just crazy to get up that high, considering this is not a song where Lenny's spending most of his time in the baritone range, maybe going into the top end of the tenor range and just briefly going there and then going back to a more comfortable range. He is consistently at this B flat 4 all the time. This is relentless as a composition vocally. There is nowhere you can rest your vocals because it is just a barrage on those vocal cords, and this is why it is such a great live vocal performance from Lenny. Just to throw in there that a lot of people will think of Lenny Kravitz as a singer and songwriter and instrumentalist. I do mention about people like that on the channel being a triple threat, but in Lenny's case, he's the complete threat because he can get in the studio, he can record every instrument, he can lay down the vocals, he can do the harmony vocals, he can mix it, he can produce it, he can make an album by himself. He's got all of that ability and that skill set for production, which is a totally different skill set to learning to sing and play an instrument. But just to throw in there about his vocal performances, because he won the best male rock vocal performance in the 99, I was going to say the year 2000, which he did win, but he won it in 99, the year before that, 2001, 2002, actually 4 consecutive years, which was a new record, and he was the first male artist to ever do that, to have 4 consecutive wins in one category. So when you add all of those things together, the fact that he's an actor as well, like I said, just a complete threat. Let me also throw in about Craig Ross on lead guitar here, doing such a fantastic job. We will get the guitar out at the end of the performance, at the end of the video, but we will jump back into it and we'll watch it all the way to the end. And there we have it. I mean, when you get a standing ovation by those 3 guys watching you, then I think you can accept that you've done an all right job. But what a performance from Lenny. And just talking about the writers of the song, Led Zeppelin, the original composition, Jimmy Page, with a riff that is so seemingly simple, but so melodic that the whole song is one riff, and the riff lasts for a bar. And when you sit down and analyze that, you think, how is that even possible to keep a song that interesting the whole time? But this is what Jimmy Page is the king of doing, and was the king of doing, writing a riff that was so good, it doesn't matter how many times you hear it, it's almost like hearing it for the first time each time. It's great as well that you've got a guy like Robert Plant singing over the top of that, and John Bonham on drums, of course. It was just one of those dream bands with John Paul Jones as well. In my other video that I did on Heart, I cut out in the edit when I do mention John Paul Jones, but I did, but unfortunately everyone says, why didn't you mention John Paul Jones in the video? It just happened to get cut out, so apologies for that, but I make sure that I mention him in this one, because Led Zeppelin were that perfect storm of a band, just having top players, but also top unique players, where it wasn't just top technical players individually, but they had a personality that was so different. But when they just came together, it was like magic, just sticking them together and getting these kind of compositions which just stand the test of time, will never get old. So just to quickly go through the guitar, and it's not going to be an instructional video as I always say, but this riff, you'll see the way that it's being played by Craig, having the little downstroke and upstroke in there. You can use just downstrokes if you want to, having this. Actually, at the beginning of the song, we hear that twice. We go like that. And the important thing is just to know that we're jumping up to that power chord on your 7th fret with the first finger, and I'm in E flat here, so if you are playing this in standard tuning, you're going to put your fingers in exactly the same place, but it will be in E. So the important thing about that right hand is just getting it to jump out with this. So you just want that to pop through that E power chord, also hitting that open E string at the bottom. You can apply a little bit of palm mute if you want to, but you'll see the way that Craig's playing it and Jimmy played it, having this jumping up and this little down up. So you'll see the way that Craig is playing it, like Jimmy plays it, having this little down up in there, and because the bass is playing the riff as well, it really does thicken out the sound. So it doesn't matter too much if you're quite muted with the with that little that happens between letting that chord pop out. So that is it. That's going to be your riff. Like I said, it goes throughout the whole song pretty much. We do have a little dynamic breakdown as well, and the slide that then descends down the guitar. So we've got this little lead section as well. That's, again, such a great job done by Craig, because everything just cuts out where we have this, and then we jump into the lead, and it's going to be, and the little run there. By the way, to make it a little bit more accurate, it is with a little bit of wah-wah in there, which you will hear throughout the performance. So we've got this, that kind of thing with the, and like that. And just down at the bottom there, to clean that up for you, is that just a little run, but a lot of alternate picking in there, and it's something that Craig just kind of throws it in there, and he then ascends into his, The really important thing to mention here is the way that Craig's playing it with the same expression, or at least playing it with his own style and expression in there, but it's still relevant to the original song. And just trying to play like Jimmy Page is probably going to be an impossible mission, so it's better just to try and get into the feel of it rather than trying to play like somebody else, because especially when you're talking about Jimmy Page, that is going to be an impossible thing to do. It's something about Jimmy Page and his solos and the way that he throws notes in there. It's never about how many notes you can fit into a beat or 4 beats of a bar. It's about just a feeling and an emotion of where he goes with it, throwing together these kind of notes where he's got this and I know that these are the notes that Craig is playing. It's having that kind of feel to it and blending the minor shapes, the major shapes. I love the way as well that Craig, on that final line, just drags it out a little bit, makes it really deliberate. So we've got this. Just that semitone run up, really cool. And vibrato, let me just throw that in there, because if you're playing all of this, like and you're not applying the vibrato, going and just holding the note, it's going to lose so much expression. And this is why Craig is just doing such a great job, because of the vibrato, how he's applying it. So when he's coming up the guitar, he's giving it that slower, wider vibrato. There is a world of difference in expression between the slower, wider vibrato that is under control and the faster, more out of control vibrato. And this is why when Craig goes into his and supplies that slower, wider vibrato, it is spot on, rather than, for example, and not really having control of it. Even though I was pretty strict there with the pitch and made sure that I kept that note there, the vibrato was too fast. It'll make it sound totally different, coming from a different place. It's the key to expression. If you're trying to play like somebody else, if you can try and match your vibrato to theirs, you'll get a similar expression. It won't be exactly the same, because the other person is a different human and has a totally different way of playing and different physiology, all of these different things to factor in. But if you can start to match the vibrato as closely as possible, as Craig is doing here, you'll get such a great expression, and you'll be able to put your own spin on somebody else's playing, but it will still be in the same ballpark as their original. It's the kind of lead that makes you want to pick up the guitar yourself, have a little play through, because of the way that it's played, just throwing caution to the wind. So when we've got this, just that kind of thing. As you could see there, I'm being quite aggressive with it, not really caring about hitting open strings. Obviously, I was hitting the low E string. You wouldn't do that if you're playing in a band, because that's what the band are doing for you. But just to give you guys a reference point to the rest of the lead and where it sits. But you could tell there that it's just all quite loose with that. And the... Obviously, there's palm muting going on there, but with the vibrato, with the navigation across the fretboard, you really just throw it all together. I know that this video's probably already gone on for ages, but I do want to include a little bit of information about Lenny, the fact that he is the son of Roxy Roker, who was an actor. She played Helen Willis in The Jeffersons, and that's a show over in the USA. We didn't get that here in the UK, unfortunately, but maybe why he's such a well-rounded artist with the acting as well, because of his mum. But she was half of the first ever interracial couple that was aired on regular primetime TV in the USA. He was very close with his mum, and she was a huge influence on him, and sadly she passed away at the age of only 66 from breast cancer. His second cousin is Al Roker, a weatherman and TV personality, I believe, over in the USA as well. Just while we're covering a bit of the family history of Lenny, I'd like to mention where he gets his name. It's from his uncle Leonard M. Kravitz, and Leonard sadly was killed in action at the age of only 19 in the Korean War, and he died defending his platoon from a Chinese attack. And because of his bravery, being able to save their lives, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Sadly, he was denied the Medal of Honor at that time because back at those times, it was something that could be denied for either ethnicity or religious beliefs, which is a very sad sign of the times back then. But he was then awarded it posthumously in 2014. It must have been great and also nerve-wracking for Lenny to perform in front of his idols here, because he named Led Zeppelin as a huge influence on him when he was growing up, as well as the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead, so many different artists and bands. His dad was a jazz promoter, so his dad knew guys like Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Miles Davis, and he listened to Motown as well, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder. And by the time it got to his first album in 1989, which was called Let Love Rule, he had so many influences, and you could tell that he was just going to write the way that he wrote, taking all of these influences in. And he did release that album. It was hugely successful, especially outside of the USA, but that really did get the ball rolling with his career. And another thing that I remember reading is that he was classmates with Nicolas Cage and Slash. But thank you guys for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep the suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!